Welcome to Macrocode, and we are going to learn today about ASP.NET Core identity. So we are going to learn how to set up, configure ASP.NET Core identity. So what is ASP.NET Core identity? So ASP.NET Core identity is a toolkit and an API which you can create authorization and authentication features in your application. So users can create an account and log in with the username and password. So it also includes roles and roles management. So ASP.NET Core identity uses SQL Server database to store usernames, password, roles, and profile data. So you can actually watch our previous videos on how to connect ASP.NET Core application using SQL Server database. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing and watching our previous videos. So we can proceed. So for us to understand this concept, we'll actually create a sample application using ASP.NET Core MVC. So to create, I've already installed Visual Studio 2022, which is the latest version. So if you have not installed, we have a video on how to install Visual Studio 2022. You can look on it. So on my screen, you can see I have a create new project. So I'll create a new project. Then we can choose the ASP.NET Core Web App MVC template. Then we will name this identity. So we're going to learn about ASP.NET Core identity. So identity. Then this is my location. Then next. So here I will. So we can leave it as it is. So authentication type, we can leave it as it is. Then we proceed. So it has created our application. So we have the program.cs, which is our entry point for the application. So if we just launch our application using the IIS Express web server, there you are. You can see this is our application name, identity, and we have actually launched our application. So for us to begin with, we need to install some nuggets. So ASP.NET Core identity needs 4 packages to be installed in our application. So to install the nuggets, you right click on the dependencies. So you can see we have this framework already installed, but now we want to install the nuggets. So we can click on our application, then we have manage nugget packages. So right click on it, then browse tab. Then here we can install Microsoft.ASP.NET ASP.NET, we call it ASP.NET Core identity. So you see we have Microsoft.ASP.NET Core identity. So install this nugget, which is the latest 2.2, which is the latest stable version. So you will see an icon on our nugget with a tick, a green tick. That means our nugget has been installed. Another packet that we need is ASP.NET Core identity.entity framework, which is this one. The latest version is 7.01. We can install that one also. Accept. So we have an issue, is not compatible with .NET 6. So we'll install .NET. I'm using .NET 6.0. So we'll install, let's try 7. Okay, 7 also is not going through. Let's say 6.0. Accept. Yes, our nugget is now installed. So if you come to dependencies, then we have packages. You will see those nuggets that we have installed. We have identity 2.0, and then this one is 6.012. So we need to install design. So then ASP.Microsoft.entity framework design. So this is another package that it needs to install. So we will install the latest stable version. Can try that. That is installed. Then we install SQL. So we are connecting our application to SQL server. So we install entity framework.sql server. So that is it. We install the latest stable version. There we are. So you can see on our packages, we have already installed those ones. So if you come to the installed packages, you can actually see all of them. So these are the packages that we have installed. So note that install only supports the version of the packages based on the .NET version that you are using. So based on the version that you are using, we install those nuggets that we want to have it. So we have already installed our packages. So another thing is we need to add 2 lines of code under the program.cs. One is the use authorization, which we have. Then we have another one called use authentication. Use authentication, these two. So we'll explain how we are going to use this. So the authorization and authentication middlewares will be needed for our project. So we have done that. So we need now to set up ASP.NETCORE identity. So the process for setting up ASP.NETCORE identity involves creating a new model class, then configuration changes on controllers and action to support authentication and operations. So we can have a folder on our project called models, which we already have. Then we can create a class, a domain class, that defines the users for our applications. So these users will be stored in our database, and the user class is derived from the identity user class of Microsoft ASP.NETCORE.identity namespace. So let's create our class called app user. So app user, then press enter. So we have our app user. So as we said, this derives from the identity user class. So what we need to do, we will have this as a derived class. So identity user. So that is it. So if we check the identity user class, let's just go to implementation. No, let's go to definition. Sorry. Let's go to definition. Let's see. So under the definition, so as you noticed, our app user doesn't have any property or method. This is because the identity user class provides some properties like the username, email, phone number, password, role membership, and so on. So if you want more properties that are not defined in the identity user class, then you certainly need to add the user class. So there are certain properties that maybe they are not in our identity user. So we will actually define those properties on our app user class, this one. So we'll define them here. So these are the properties that are not in our identity user. So this identity user, class properties has some properties. So you can see we have the ID. So the ID, it contains the unique ID of the user. Then we have the username here. The username contains the user's username. Then we have claims. Down here we'll see something called claims. You can see it actually has claims. So you can see it uses the namespace Microsoft.ASP.NETCORE identity, which is one of the nuggets that we installed. It also has email. This is the email. So the email, it contains the email of the user. It also has the password hash, which contains the hash form of the user password. Then it also has the roles, if I'm not wrong. Then the phone number. It has the phone number here. The phone number, let's see, yes, it has the phone number, which is the phone number of the user. It also has the security stamp. Yes, the security stamp, it contains a value that is changed whenever the user identity is altered. For example, a password or phone number changes. So this is the security stamp. So we have defined one of the model class, which is our app user. So this app user will be extending properties that are not in our identity user. So we need to define the database context. So the database context class is derived from the identity DB context. So the identity DB context class is from the ASP.NETCORE identity.entity framework namespace. So we already installed that nugget. And this namespace is used by the identity for communicating with the database through entity framework. So the database class operates on the app user class. And also you need to remember that we define the user class as app user.cs. So now we need to create the DB context class in our project. So we can create another folder called context. So here we need to create a class called application, or we can call it app identity DB context. So app identity DB context. Sorry, let me just, so we can call it app identity DB context class. So this is our class. So as we said, this is a derived class from the identity DB context. So what we'll do, we'll actually derive this from identity DB context. Then here we pass our app user class, app user. So then we can now define our constructor public app identity DB context. Then this one we need to be DB context options. Then we need this one here. Then this one will be options. Then we close these, we have our base, these options there. So these will be our, we can actually pull this down or even from here. So let me minimize this a bit so that we have space. So this is our app identity DB context class. So notice that we haven't added any property or method to this class. This is because this empty class is inheriting from the identity DB context app user. So it's getting all its method and properties from this one. So another thing that we need to do now is the database connection string. So ASP.NETCORE identity database connection string contains the database name, username, and password to connect to the identity database. So it is actually stored in the app settings.json file. So we will do a video about app settings.json file. So consider watching our previous videos and our next videos, and also subscribing and turn on the notification bell for more information. So this file resides on the root of the project. So you can see we have it here. So mostly this file is already created when a new project is created. So if it is missing, then you right click on the project name in the Solution Explorer here, then a new, add new item, then you select app settings JSON file. So if you come here, you will see this one. So if it is missing on your project, then you select it and create it. But mostly when you create your project, you will see that file already created. But in case you mess with it, then it is lost. You can actually create a new one. So on these app settings.json, we need now to create our connection string. So if you just type connection string, it will come. Then this one we provide now our default connection. Can call it default connection. So on this default connection, this is actually should be in double quotes. Sorry. Then we assign it some value. So what we need to assign it is the server. So the server name. So launch your, I'm using SQL. I've already installed SQL Express and also SQL Server Management Studio. So I'll just copy my server address. This is my server address. Then I paste it here. Then I'll need the database. So put in full colon, then database. Then is equals to, you can give it the name of the database. So I'll connect to my SQL. Then here, let me just delete this table database and create a new one. So I'll create a new database. We called it identity. So we have our database called identity. It doesn't have any tables. So I'll copy this name and paste it on our string here. Then another thing that we need to know is we need to provide, in case of trust issues, trusted connection. This is for we trust the connection. So that is true. Then we can allow multiple active connections, multiple active result sets, multiple active result sets. So we give it a true. So that is our connection string. So this is, we have now established our connection to the our server. So in this connection string, the server name specifies the SQL Server local database. Then the database specifies the name of the database, which I've named it as identity. Then you can actually name it anything that you want. So the trusted connection is set to true. Trusted connection. So it's set to true so that the project will use Windows authentication. So this is method meant for Windows authentication to connect to this database, and there is no need for providing the database name and username. That is the username and the password. So if you just provide the trusted connection, then it will use the Windows authentication. So the multiple active result sets, which is called MAS, is a feature that works with SQL Server to allow the execution of multiple batches on a single connection. So this mass is a multiple active result set, is a feature that works on with SQL Server to allow the execution of multiple batches on a single connection. So this gives fast execution for SQL operations. So we have actually set it to true. So now we have to update the program.cs file so that the application can read the connection from the app settings.json. So what we need to do, we come to program.cs, then we need to register our application DB context. So here we'll come and say builder.services.add DB context, then .add DB context, then we provide the name of our DB context. You can actually copy it, then we paste it there. Then here we actually now provide the options, call it options. Then in these options we say options dot use. We are using SQL Server, so this SQL Server we wanted to get it from builder.configuration.get connection string. So we have this one. So this is the connection string. We need to pass the name of our connection string. We get it from the app settings.json. This is the name. So we want it to read from here. So we paste it there. And that is how we, so after we have done that, we need to close this. And that is how we have actually defined our connection string. So so first you have to add the constructor to receive an object of type iConfiguration. So you can see we have this connection. We have actually registered it. So we will actually learn more about dependency injection feature in ASP.NETCORE on our next video. So we have actually used the add DB context, this one, add DB context method to apply the DB context class that we created previously. So, and actually specify that it will be using the SQL Server database. So we have specified here, whose connection string is actually obtained from the default connection file from the app.json file. So this is the default connection string from the app settings.json. So in .NET 6.0 and later version, the startup class is actually not there. So there are certain projects that you will see startup class, but in .NET 6 and 7 we don't have a startup class. We are using the program.cs. So some of you might be wondering why we are not having that. So my project will be different from yours. So this is how you register it in .NET 6. But for the other application, you have the startup.cs class. So you'll register it there. So we have actually created now our ASP.NETCORE. So what we need to do now is to set up the ASP.NETCORE identity as a service. So now we have to perform the ASP.NETCORE identity configuration on program.cs. So we need to update it with a certain code. So here we will update it. We can say builder.service. Then we add identity. So we add identity. So then this identity will be from our class app user. Then we pass identity role, the identity role. So this is actually you need to call it here dot add entity framework stores, then application DB context, then we can say add default token providers. This is a method. So that is it. So you need to add that line. So not that so we have actually added, so on this code we have specified that the add identity method, this one, with a parameter that specify the class used to represent users and the class used to represent the roles, the identity roles. So the add identity framework store method specify that identity should use ASP.NETCORE and the DB context class, which is in the project as a app identity DB context. So the add default token providers methods add the default token providers used to generate token for reset of password, change email, change telephone number operations, and two-factor authentication token generations. So when you recall on our previous, when we started the project, we added app.use authentication method here, this one. So by this, on every HTTP request, the user's credentials will be added on a cookie or a URL. So this will associate a given user with the HTTP request he or she makes to the application. So this is also different on how you register these on ASP.NET Core 5.0 and below. So this is how you register in ASP.NET 6. So the next thing is now creating the identity database using the EF-core command migrations. So now we are ready to create our identity database. So we add our database. So we'll be using identity framework core migration command to perform these operations. So to run this migration, we will use the package manage console window. So you'll also need to install the .NET Core CLI, which are entity framework core tools for running and managing migrations. So to install that, we come to our manage here, application manage nuggets. Then we need to install entity framework core tools, this one. So install it. So we can see we have it on our packages. Yes, we have already installed it. So if you want to learn more about migrations in EF-core, we will do a video about migrations in EF-core. So if you want to see if these nuggets have also been installed, apart from here, you can right click on your project, then you can say edit project file. Then you're able to see those packages. So you can see these one, all these packages that we installed are actually on this project here. So that is another way to see them. So since you have done that, we now want to run migrations. So what we need to do, we'll come to our project under tools, then Nugget package manager, then project console, package console, then we have this window. So here I'll run a migration command. So we'll use this command add migration. Then we provide the name of the migration, initial migration. Then we say we are using identity, our context class. So we'll copy this name here and provide it here. Then we press enter. So our project will now generate the SQL statements. So there we are. So you can see we have the SQL statement for creating ASP.NET roles table with these columns. We have the users table, the one we were looking on, the identity user. So this is it. then the roles claims table, the user claims table, the logins, the user roles. So these are the commands, SQL statements that will be. So if you want to update these changes to the database, we now use, and another thing before we update the changes, if you see your project under, you'll see there is a new folder called migrations. So under these migrations, this is now we have our migrations name. You can see we named it initial migration. So you can see we have a class called initial migration. This is the one now holding our changes to the database. So to update these changes to the database, we'll do update, then database. Press enter, and you can see the changes. So it will actually run. So there we are. You can see we have an issue, and the issue is a connection was successfully established with the server, but the error occurred during the login process. So provider SSL provider error, the certificate chain was issued by unauthorized that is not trusted. So the issue is on our SSL connection. So let me just check something. On our, so what we need to do is our server name is this one, that is fine. Then we have our database identity, we confirm this identity, that's fine. Then trusted underscore connection, that is fine. Multiple active result set. So what we need to add, we put in a full colon here, then we can say trusted server certificate. So we give this also true. So we save it. Then we try now to update our database again. So we just use the same command, then press enter. So it will run the migration. So it says keyword not supported, trusted server certificate. Let me just see the name trusted. It is not trusted, it is trust server certificate. Trust server certificate, yeah. Press OK, update as well. So it has gone through. You can see the commands. So these are the commands that is updating the database. So it is done. So it is actually done. So when we come to our database, if we refresh the tables, there we are. So you can see we have around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tables. So if we select this is actually tracking our initial migration. So you can see the name of our migrations. Now when you do the migrations and apply the database changes, it will actually list them here. So we now have the table for ASP.NET roles, claims, user roles, users, and tokens. So we have done that. So that is good. So we have actually updated our database. So the next thing, so just to give you a highlight of what this means. So the EF migration history contains all the previous migrations that will be undertaken. The roles claim stores the claims by roles. The role stores all the roles of the application. Then the user claims stores claims by users. User login stores the login time for users. The user roles will store roles for users. The users will store all the users in our application, and the user token stores external authentication tokens. So that is now how you have set up the application. So the next thing that we might need to do is now to do a create, read, update, and delete users in ASP.NETCORE. So we have just actually set up our application, and we need now to perform the CRUD operations. So to perform ASP.NET Core identity CRUD operation, that is creating and deleting, we'll need to manage identity users through our application. So since we have done the setup and configuration, then it will be easy for us to proceed. So we need to create new users in ASP.NET Core, and we'll need a C# class. So let's create a class called a user. So in our application here, under models, let's create a class called user. So this is now where we'll be feeding in the data for a particular user. So we can create call user. So this is our class. So inside this class, we can actually have three properties. That is the name. So this will be string equal the name. We can have another one, the email, and we can have another one called password. So we can have all these as a string, and we can actually decorate them as a required attributes. It's actually required. Can decorate these, can decorate these as well. So we can actually also add regular expressions for the email. So if you need to, but for today we'll just proceed. So the next thing that you might need to do, we can create now a controller. So under controllers, let's create another controller called an empty controller called users. So we can name our controller as users controller. So you can see we have users controller. So this is our controller. It extends the controller base class. So here in the controller, we need an instance of user manager class. So this is through what we call dependency injection technique. So we will actually do dependency injections in our next video. So here, let's just do a private user manager. Then this is for app user. Then we can give it a name. We call it user manager with a small u. So then we need to inject this. So we'll need our constructor. So here we can do public. So we copy this here, our constructor class. Then we inject this. It has already even done it. So we have actually injected ASP, that is user manager. Then we have it. We actually provided it with the name. So we need now to create. So we'll be using a variable called user manager to the user manager object, which we will go through dependency injections on our next video. So next we need to create a create action method that will create a new user in the identity database. So to add this, we'll need to add it to our users controller. So let's create a view. So let's just copy this. This view we called it can call it create. So then we need to create a post method. So this is a get. So this one we'll decorate it with now HTTP post. There we are. So then we need to pass our model, which is the user that we just created. This one, this is our model class. So back to our controller, then we give it the name user. So we can have it as async task. Then our task can supply it with action result, I action result. So that is it. So inside here we need to check our model if we have all the values. So validation model state dot is valid. If it's valid, we come here and we say app user. So instantiate our object. Then this will be new app user. So inside our app user, we now assign the values. We say in here username will be the data coming from our user class dot name, then comma, then email will be our email. So we don't need this. So after we have done that, we need a comma here. So we say identity result, identity result, can call result is equals to await. Then we need to create now our user. So it will be await app user. Then we can pass the password, user dot password. So that is it. So you can see you can create async. We need the user details and the password. So it will create the specified user in the backstore with given password as a synchronous operation. So the password for the user to hash and store. So it will actually hash this and store it. So since we have done that, we need to check if it has gone through. So if it succeeded, we return and redirect to action. So we redirect to index, then we don't want it to go to home, so it will just go back to our index page, which is users. Fine. So else, if it has not gone through, we pass the error. So for each, we say identity error error in result.errors. So we need to get all the errors here. So we will model state dot add model error. So we'll come here, then we provide the error that is being given to us by our application. Then after all this is done, we need now to return view with our user. Return view with our user. So that is it. So the post version of the create action does the creation of the new identity user. So it takes the argument of the user class here and checks if the model state is valid or not. This is where we are doing it. So we'll do another CRUD operation in Entity Framework and ASP.NETCORE in our next videos. So for now, if the model state is valid, then it will create a new instance of app user class and give it the username and password. values as provided in the user class here. So after this, we create the user from the creator sync here method for of the user manager class. So as you remember, we get this class object through dependency injection. So the creator sync method takes two parameters, which are the app user and the password. Once the user is created, it returns the identity result, this one. So this result class, which it actually represent the result of the operation. So the result class has two properties, either it is succeeded or errors. So the succeeded property returns true if the create user operation complete successfully, or error if you just type in error here. This property of the error will return an object type of enumerable that contains all the errors occurred while performing the identity operation. So the identity error has a description property which gives the description of each of the error that has happened. So this one. So that is how we do that. So so we use the succeeded property of the identity result here to find whether the create user operation completed successfully. So we'll also do some videos about controllers in ASP.NETCORE. So keep posted. So if it is completed successfully, this operation, then we redirect it to our index page. Else we read the errors inside the identity error. So we need now to create the razor view page for our. So here under views, we'll create a folder called users. We create a folder called users. So under users, we'll create a razor page called create, which is empty. So you can name it as a create. So you can see we have our create page which is empty. So in this create page, we will be passing our model. So at model user. So can have our title of the project. So here view data, then can call it title b is equals to our string create user. So that is it. So we need now to pass, so we can have some headers with a class. So I'll define this class here. Class, call it big info text white. So you can have it as create user. Then you can have a back button here. SP action, it will take us to the index. Can give it a class for the button btn secondary. Then this is a back button, back, and something here for validation. Where we'll be having our validations. Then our class will be text danger. We can close that. So we now need to create our form. So form, our method will be post. post method. Then we close our form. Inside our form, we now have the inputs class form group. You can close this. Then the label ASP form. So we'll be taking the name from our model class. Then we need the input ASP4 name. Then this will be the class here for form control. Then we can close this. So we can copy this and reuse it here. Then we just change this to email. We copy this again to password. Here to password. Then we now need to provide our button inside here, button. Then type the button is a submit button. Then class for the button btn primary. Then we need to close these and then we say create user. So that we are done with our create razor page. So that is it. So the view has a simple form to create a new identity user. So this view, by only entering the username, email, and the password. So these values will be received by the user's controller on our post method here. And the user is actually created in our identity database. So we can actually try. So we can launch. So on our program.cs, we can actually change our home. So we can actually create, let's create an index for our razor page here, an empty. Then we call index, fine. So on the index razor page, we need to add some views. So we will be using the at model. So enumerable. So we'll be using the app user class. Then here we'll be having the view data, just providing our title. This will be title is equals to read user, or we can say all users. So this is our view to give us the list of all users. So h1, so we can provide a class bg info, text will be white. So you can say all users. Then we need a back button, ASP action create. Then our class will be btn secondary. Then we need a title here, create a user. So we will be creating a user from when we are on our list page. So we need now a table. So class table, a table, small table, ordered. So here we close our table. Then we need our table rows. Then table headers. That will be the ID. Table header. It will be the name. Table. Another one for our email. Then we need the email. Then now we need our another table row for our data. So we look through all our users for each app user in model. So we need to look through all these users. Then inside here you actually need our table rows. Table row here, we need them inside here. Then here we need our our table data. We need our table data. The first one will be at user.id. Then this one will be name. It will be username. Then it will be here will be our email. So that is it. So we have created our index page. So for us to get this data, we need to modify our index view. So under users controller, come to index. You see it just return a view without anything. So what we need to do, we need to return the user manager dot users, all the users. So it will actually return all the users. So that is how you do it. So so we can actually launch our application and see. So we can redirect our users on a program.cs to not to go to home but to users controller. Users. So that is how you do it. So if we launch this via IIS Express web server, you expect it to redirect to users controller. There you are. So you can see we have our users table, the ID, name, and the email. So if we just click on create a new user, so we have some spelling error there. So we can correct it on the create. It is actually on the index. We say create a user. So we can launch it. So if we just click on create, so you can see we have our form. So we can create the name of the user called James Vincent. Then email will be james@gmail.com. then our password will be admin. So if we just click on create, you can see we have some password must be at least 6 characters, password must have at least one numeric alphabetical. So we need to pass the correct password. So we can say admin 1234. Let's try this. Yes, password must have at least one non-alphanumeric character. So admin 1234 exclamation mark. If we create that, you can see username James is invalid, can only contain 1 letters or digits. So we can remove these. We can create now. Username can only contain letters or digits. So let's try James. So it has created. So it has created our user. So we can add another user. We call Kamau at gmail.com. You can use the same password admin. Yes, we create. So you can see we have our user. So if we come to our database under ASP users and try to select, so you can see we have the ID, the username, the normalized username, the email address, the normalized email. If email is confirmed, which this is not, so it is 0. When it's confirmed, it is 1. So the password hash, the security stamp, can just minimize this one. So you can see we have that concurrency phone number. We don't have it. Yeah, so that is how we have created our user. So if we come to roles, you see we don't have anything. User claims. Sorry, let me just select. We don't have any ASP.NET user tokens. We don't have any ASP.NET user roles and none. ASP.NET login. We don't have any. So we have only created users. So we have added these 2 users on our application. So we have done that. So the next thing that we need to do is we can update our user in identity. So now we need to update our user record in ASP.NET Core. So what we need to do, we need to modify our view. So come to the index. So on our view here, we can add another table header called update. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Call update. Then down here on our table row, we can add another table data. Then we call it, we can have, sorry. So plus, then this will be btn, then we have btn primary. So these are button class. Then this one we need to call an action, sp action. So our action will be update. So we'll add this action on our controller. Then we need to pass an ID, root ID, the user that it will be updating. So this one will pass the ID from our class here. So we will be using at user.id. Then we can close these and you can give it a name called update. So that is fine. So in our users controller, we need to add a dependency of high password hasher in the controller. So it is used to get the hashed value of the user password. This is because of security purposes in ASP.NETCORE identity. So, and you know the ASP.NET Core identity stores the user password in hashed value instead of a plain text. So therefore, if an hacker gains access to our database and finds this hashed value, he cannot log into a user account. So we need to do that. So let's come to our SP user controller. Then we need to inject something here called private password hasher. Then we supply our app user, then password hasher. Then we need to inject it here. So I've injected it and we already have it here. So next we need to add an update action to the admin controller. So we'll be using this hasher to actually update our user details. So let's do this. So we can actually now provide a view. Let's copy these. Then we say public async task. Then I action result. Then we need an update. Then here we need to pass our string. So remember we are updating a certain user. So we need that user ID. So then, So here we need to pass app user. User is equals. We need to get that user that is being updated and get his details. So user manager dot find. So we need to find. So this user manager, using user manager, this one. So we are finding. We need to find by ID, and that ID is one we have received from here. Then if that user is not available, if this user is not null, let's deal with that first. If that user is not null, then we return that user. So we return the view and we only pass this user, not all of them. Then else, if it's null, what we need to do is we redirect to, can actually redirect, redirect to action. Then we pass the action here, index. So that is how we do that. So that is our view, our get method. So we need a post for us to update the details. So we'll decorate this with post, http post. So on our http post method, we need to pass the ID. Then we need to pass two things. We can pass the email, assuming we want to update those two. String, then password. Sorry. We can also update the password. String, password. That is it. So if we found the user already exists and it's not null, we also, what we need to do here, we can check if the email string dot is null or empty that you are receiving. You need to check the email that you are receiving. Email. If it's not null, we can do this. So we can assign our user dot email. We can assign it to our email that we received. We can also check our our password. If it's not null, so if it's not null, we say user.password hash is equals to, so we need to hash our password. So password hasher dot hash password, then user then our password that we have received. So it will give us our hashed password. Else, if that is empty, we can actually throw an error. So you can say model state dot add model error. Then this one will be string. Sorry, let me just do this. Add model error string dot empty. Then you can pass our error here. We can say password cannot be empty. That is it. So we can close it. So since we have done the validations, we can now check if our string is null. So we check our password, and so we can check this one and our email if they are not empty, both of them. And our email, if they are not empty, we can proceed and update our user details. So you can say identity result, identity result will be equal to the result is equals to await, then user manager, then it will create our user. Then if this is successful, if result dot succeeded, if we succeed, we redirect to our, can actually do away with this one and just pass return redirect to our action, redirect to action, then we pass our action index. Else, if it's not successful, what do we do? We say errors then we pass our result. This one will be, or even you can just redirect to, you can even redirect to index, no worries. So since we have done that, so we have this if here, if the user is not found, what do? We can actually, this one is not, sorry, so if this one is not, so what do we do here? So we can say model state dot add error, then we can pass our string empty, then we say user not found, that user is not found, then we close. Then after that, here we can we can return the view, return view with our users, our user. So this one we can get rid of this, so we can do that. So you can see there's an error here, it says, so you can do this here, then that's fine. Yeah, so that is it. So no, we can leave this here, then we can because that is it. We can return it there, we see. So we can actually try to see if we can update our user. So let's do that. So the HTTP GET version of the update actions takes a string called ID. It will contain the ID value of the user registered in our identity database. So the user's record is actually fetched from the identity database using the find by ID methods of the user manager class. So the find by ID method is provided with the ID of the identity user, and we get the user details. So once the user information is fetched, then it sends the update view as a model. So the HTTP post version of the update action is where we update the identity user's record. So this action is invoked when the user clicks the submit button on the update form. So after that, so we can actually try now to update. So we can launch our application and we see. So you can see we have our update action that we introduced. So if we click on update, so we want to update Kamau. So if we click on update, there you can see it is saying invalid exception, the view update was not found. Very true. So that is because on our users actions, we don't have the update view. So what we need to do is we need to create a razor view of the update. So we'll call it update. So there we are. So we now have our, let me just close some of these. So we now have our update view. So on the update view, we'll pass our model. So model, then app user. We can have our title. Have our title. View data. We call it title. So our title will be update user. So after we have done that, we can now provide some labels. H1. Then we say provide our class here. Class we call bg info text white. So we can actually we can actually copy our crate. Yeah, if I'm not wrong, let's copy that, then we modify. I'll show you. So here we can use the app user. Then this one will be update user. This one will be update user. So back button will take us to index. So our post method, we need to specify the action. So ASP action will be update. Then this one will be our ID. Then we can have our email, that's fine. Then our next one will be SP for email. Then this one will be SP for password. And that's fine. Then submit. This will be update. So let's see what's wrong here. Say the type arguments of method. I think that's fine. Let me see. Get rid of that. Inputs. Let me copy these. Yeah. I say email. I say email. Then I need here. I need the password. Need the password, not password hash. Password. So app user, let's see. So we can actually provide. Welcome to MacroCode, and today we are going to learn about dependency injection in ASP.NETCORE 6.0. So if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing and commenting down below for any suggestion on development topics. So today we are going to learn about dependency injection in ASP.NETCORE. So what is dependency injection? So dependency injection is the short form for DI, is an ASP.NET Core technique to achieve a loosely coupling between objects so that the application can be maintained in an easy manner. So in .NET Core, we'll be able to create a new application and demonstrate how we can actually use or work with the dependency injection feature. So on today's video, we are going to learn about dependency injection example, controllers and views, solving the tightly coupling problem with dependency injection, implementing dependency injection in controllers, and even looking at some of the dependency injection methods and the types of dependency injection in ASP.NET Core. So I've installed Visual Studio 2022. So if you have not installed Visual Studio 2022, which is the latest version, consider watching our previous videos on how to do that. So I've opened my Visual Studio 2022 studio, and we can now proceed creating a new project. So on this tab, you can see here, we will create a new project. Then we are using the ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller template. Then we will select that. Then we'll give our project name. We call this dependency injection. So that is the name of our project. Then we click next. So we will be using .NET 6.0, which is in LTS. Then we can just leave this as it is. Then we create a new. So this app that you have created, we'll be creating an app to actually store some data about employees. So first thing first, we have a folder called models. So what we'll need to do, let's create a domain class for employees. So we'll create a new class called employees. So I'll just name my class, call it employee. So this is my class. So here we'll give in some properties. So that is a public class employee public class. Let's do this. It is not, we are actually naming public int, so we'll give it an ID, so we can decorate this to be our primary key. That is it. So our employee should be having a first name, which is a string. Sorry. So this is a string. Here is the first name. Then our employee here should be having a string, which is our middle name. Our employee here should be having also last name. Then we can have date, time. They can be having date of birth. Our employee should be having email address. Our employee should be having an ID number, string, so we can ID number. So we can leave it as string. It depends wherever you are watching, whether your identity card is in integer, you can change that. For us in Kenya, this is int, so I can leave it in integer. Then in we can have phone number. We can leave these as integer as well. So we can also decorate these with the required feature annotation. So we can have that. So we require the middle name, even the last name, the date of birth, email address, ID number, and even the phone number. So we don't require the first name to be null, so we can do this. You can do string.empty, or you can actually do null, then full colon, exclamation mark. Then you can also do this the same way, null, you negate it, then can do these as well, equals to null, that way. It is giving that way, and remove these. So we can also want to display our full name. So we'll click public, then string full name. So our full name will be, it will be a combination. So that is how we do it, a combination of first name, combination of first name, last name, middle name, then a combination of last name. So that is our full name, then we close this. So that is our class. So we have created our class called employee. So the next thing that we need to do, we need to create an interface inside the, so we can actually create another folder called, I prefer having another folder for interfaces. We can call it interfaces. So we can call this I repository. So we just come to create an interface, we click add new, then interface, then you can name it I stands for interface repository. So that is our interface. So on our interface, this interface contains some properties and methods that we need to add, read, and delete products to the to our repository. So first thing, we need to have the method for, so enumerable. So we want to read all the products, I mean all the employees. So we'll pass our class there. So this is meant to read all the employees. So employees, then we get all the employees. Then we want to add. So our method for adding, so we can add employee. That is it. We can also delete employee. You can also update. Or you can even, let's say, void update employee. So that is our methods. So, so in this interface, we have created an interface that has these methods to retrieve a list of employees, to add, update, and delete. So the next thing that we need to do, we need and create a repository service. So I prefer creating another folder. Let's create another folder, then we name it services. So this is where we will be having our implementation. So the good thing is you need to have your service name the same as the interface name, but now remove the I. So this will be our repository service class. So we have it that way. Then this repository service will need to be deriving from the I repository. So it is actually an implementation of I repository. So that is it. So you can see it has an error. That means we need to implement the methods that is in our interface. So one is a public. So we need our constructor there. So this constructor, then we need now our methods. So public enumerable, then our employee, then we need the lists, employees. So yeah, so these employees, so this method we'll be using an in-memory kind of repository and not the database. So I'll be showcasing how we can do that in our database, but for now we are not connecting this to our database. So what we need to do, let's build a dictionary of employees here. Private dictionary string, then this is employee, then we need employees. So that is it. So this dictionary, we are going to assign it some values. So initialize here, then we say new list of employee. New list of employee will be, new list of employee will be, so new employee, so you can say ID is equals to so new, we need to say new employee, then we need this one, ID should be 1, then middle first name is actually a string, James, then middle name is actually a string, Jacob, then we say last name say Eugene, then we say ID number. I'll minimize this. It'll be 1 2 3 4. Then our other value is phone number will be 1 2 3. Then our another value. So let me squeeze this. Then what is our other property? Date of birth. So we can give it now. The time to be now. The time.utc. So that is our date of birth. So I think that is it. So we can create some employees here. So I can copy these. So and we can copy, then we put in some commas here. So we put in some commas. So that is it. So this should be new. So you can have these as 2, 3, 4. So you're using in memory 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that is our employees. So so after we have done that, then what we need to do is we say for each these we need to add it to our list. Say k is equals to add product. We say add employee. Add employee. Then we pass our okay there. So the reason as to why we have this error, we don't have the add method. So we'll do this. So let's start with that one. We can say public void, then add employee. Then we need to pass employee. Then that employee will be employees, then employee dot, let's work with the full name, is equals to employee. So let's get the list first here. Public, that error will remove it, don't worry about it. Enumerable. Then we want the employee, then this will be employees will be equal to, so our list will be employees dot values. So that is it. So what was our, so this is our dictionary string, then employee and employees. So employees That's fine. So our employee here will be employees. If this is employee, but get values. It says let's see employees dot value dot get enumerator. Okay, so then we want this add will be our product. So our product will be the employee. Then this will be not like this, will be this way. Then we say employee full name. Then you assign it to this. So then we want to delete. So you can do this. We say delete employee. So when we pass it, then we say employee. So we'll be remove. We remove our employee the full name. So then we get rid of these. So I think this is fine. We can do away on our interface. We can do away with update. We'll showcase this on our next video. So then we want to retrieve a single product, I don't know why I'm saying this. So a single employee. So that will be employee this. Then we have a string name, or we can just call it name. Employees, that is it. So this will give us a single employee details. So we still have an error here. So we'll come to repository. So there is something we are missing here, a single retrieving of employee record. So we'll do this. You can say, you can use either get employee or and we just use employee, then we just need a string name, then get it. So that is it. So that's fine. So if we come here, our error should be, so does not implement a repository, cannot implement a matching of enumerable employee. So it doesn't have enumerable employee. Do you have it here? Enumerator. We say enumerable employee, then product, employees, then we assign these to values. That is when we have an issue. So that should be fine. So our error should be gone. So this is just we have just created a repository. This is an interface with these methods and the implementation of these methods on our service. So our application will be storing data of about 9 employees. So as you can see on our constructor repository, so these other code should be explanatory, these ones. So these are list of employees, retrieving a single record, adding and deleting. So what we need to do, let's go to our controller under home. Then on the view, we need, so we can say new So this repository, we are going to import it. So there we are. So so we have actually now used we retrieve our employees from the repository class. So we have created a new object of the repository and calling the employees property. So this property will return all the 9 employees that are stored in the dictionary. So the next thing that we need to do is on the view. So when you come to our home view, so we need to show this data. So here I'll do away with this. So you can say if. So I can do if. So if view data dot count is greater than 0, then what we need to do is we say table. So we need to define data table. So we can have a class for our table bordered. So I'm doing some table script. So on our table, you can say for each item in view data here. So table row for table rows, then table data. So our table data, the first one will be at item dot key. Then our next one will be table data at item dot value. So what if this is greater? So we will display another table. So I'll copy this. If it's less, so we'll do that same table. Then I'll say so this is our class. So we'll provide our table header. Table head. Then inside here we'll provide our table row. Table head. So this one will be name. Can copy these, then can have say this is full name. Then this will be having you can say ID number. So in our table, after this we can have our table body. Then inside here we say if model is equals to null, then what we need to do, we provide our table row, table data. Then we can say no model data. then here we can put some spacing, then class here, and say class text center. So else, if these are some values, we can do table row, table data, table row, table data. So here we are having at for each in model. So we want to loop all the records, so you can copy these and bring it inside. Then our table data, we can have it as p.full name. Then we can have these here again, equal, can call it ID number. Hope that's how our class is named, ID number. So we can have it here. So that is our table. So the view reads our employees by looping through the view data, this one, object, and displays all the employees in the tabular manner. So if we run our application, so let's see our, so let's try, so we can run our application. We see if we will get any data. There you see we have full name James Jacob, then ID number is that one. So it is actually giving us one employee. So let's see what is the issue. So under employees, so that is it. So should give us the values. So for each so for each, here you can say, let's just change the Amon Karua, you can change the first name, Aaron Kips Joguna Kamau Peter Vincent. So our full name, so that is it, our ID number. So for each this one, add employee. So what does it do? It comes here and adds the, so our add function should be, so it should add our full name, which is our employee. So that's fine. Let's try again. Yes. So we have our full name. You can see it as, so the first one, I think it was having the same data. That's why we are getting the issue. So we have our full name and ID number. So what we need to now know, we have retrieved data from our repository here, which has an inbuilt, it has some data that is in memory. So there is something now we need to understand. So if you see the controller code, if you see this controller code, our home controller, you can see we have these new repository methods .employee. So our code is actually tightly coupled to this class. So the reason being that we are directly creating the object of repository class using the new keyword. So we are actually creating this object using the new keyword in our code. So suppose after some time, there is a need that we change this repository class to another class, assuming new name being new repository. So assuming we change this name to new repository. So if we change this to new repository, if we change this, then what will happen? There will be a problem managing the tightly coupled components. So why is tightly coupled code very bad? So you should actually avoid tightly coupled code. So one, it gives problems during the maintenance phase of your project. So if one component changes, then you will need to affect the other components. Two, there will be a lot of problems when performing unit testing. So there are two things that actually dependency injections help us. So one is unit testing and maintenance. So you can see if we change just a name of these, if we change that name, then anywhere you are using the repository class, this one, where you have the new keyword, you will have to replace with this new. So you'll be doing that everywhere. So the dependency injection technique solves these problems. So the controller class can be provided with the repository object automatically by ASP.NETCORE and actually will remove the tightly coupling problem. So how do we do that? So how do we implement dependency injection in ASP.NETCORE? So first, we need to register the service in the ASP.NETCORE to actually resolve the dependency. So there are two steps that we actually need to do to actually implement the dependency injection in ASP.NETCORE controllers. One is to decouple the controller from the tight couple to loosely coupled dependency. So this is actually tightly coupled. So we need to untie this. Second is we need to specify how this new dependency, the loosely coupled, should be resolved by the ASP.NETCORE runtime. So first thing, we will create a loosely coupled dependency in the controller. So for this, we'll implement an interface and use this interface in the controller. So if you recall earlier, we created an interface called iRepository, this one. So this iRepository will be using it. The repository class, this one, is actually implementing this interface. So you can see it is actually implementing this interface. So now we need to update our controller so that this interface creates the dependency. So on our controller, we can update it here. So we say private iRepository then you can give it a name. Then we need to inject this here. So you can put in a comma. So you can see even the iLogger, it has already been, when we created our project, this was already done by our ASP.NET Core by default. So we need to now use this iRepository, then repo, then you need to assign it here. So you can say repository is equals to the repo. So that is it. So we have now done the two things. One, we have added a variable of the interface type iRepository here in our controller and added a constructor that has a parameter of this interface. So you can see here. So inside the constructor, we will set the value of the interface variable to the value of the constructor parameter. So you can see this, we have actually given it our value. So with this, we have added now the loosely coupled dependency in our controller. So now in our action method, the one we use to access this one on our index. So instead of doing this, what we need to do, we just use this one. So we remove these and replace with repository. You see this one that we have done here. So we replace it here. We remove the new keyword. So if we do that, we will as well get our data. So if we just run our project, so you can see we have unable to resolve service for these while attempting to. It is actually not an error, but there is something we have not done. So when you come to our application on the program.cs file, so we need to resolve the dependency iRepository interface, we need to register a new service for the dependency injection to resolve automatically. So the work of this is to resolve the dependency. What we need to do is we need to add, so on our project here, we need to add that dependency. So builder.service, then we say add transient. So we will actually do a video about dependency injection methods on our next video about this add transient. We have this one, we have add scoped, and we have add singleton. So watch our videos on our next session. We'll be showing the difference between these three. So for today, we'll just add transient. Then we pass our interface, repository, then our implementation class, repository, then this is a method. So that is it. So what you have done, this service that you have created, we have actually created it in a transient manner, such that whenever a request for iRepository object is made, then it should be resolved by providing the implementation of the repository type. So the first parameter of the add transient method is of type interface, which is iRepository, and the second parameter is repository service. So it means if you see a dependency of iRepository, then it is resolved by creating an object of repository class. So if you are using ASP.NETCORE 5.0 and below, then you will be defining these on the startup.cs. So, but for .NET 6 and above, you do that under program.cs. So if we now launch our application, we don't expect any error. There you are. So you can see we have now our data, the employees records that we created. So we have actually now done a dependency injection and tried to have a loosely coupled controller and the repository class. So supposing later during the development phase, we actually rename the repository class, this one, to new repository as we were indicating. So what we need to do, if we just name this to new repository, can just do it, new repository. So we will only name this class here. So we can rename it. So you can see we have actually renamed it to new repository. So we will actually be dealing with two parts, only this class and our program.cs here. And everything should work. So if we launch our application, everything should work. So assuming we could be using our first approach, you can actually be going everywhere renaming that class. So which is a lot of work. So you can see we have just renamed our class here, and everything is running. So if we were to use this here, new, then we do this everywhere on our controllers, assuming you have like 100 controllers here. So you will actually be doing this, renaming here on every controller, which will be a lot of work. So that is now the essence of dependency injection. So I hope I have made it as simpler. So, and that is how you have used the dependency injection in our controller. So on our next video, we'll be showing now more about dependency injection and the methods about the dependency injections methods. So I think that is it for today's video, and we will be doing, keep posted for more information about dependency injection methods. So if you are new to this channel, consider subscribing and watching our previous videos. See you in our next session.